Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm here with Justin from Robot Entertainment.
Howdy.
If you'd just like to introduce yourself, and then I'll start off with
Yeah,
that.
I'm Justin Korthoff. I'm 60K. Most people know me as
Hmm.
SIXOKAY on Twitter and all the other places. I'm the community manager here at Robot Entertainment.
Oh, awesome sauce.
That's the short version.
The short version. All right then. Yeah, guys, if in the chat, if you do have questions, just pop them in. If I don't get to them straight away, I'll write them down as we go, and then we can ask them later on. But yeah, we'll do that from now. So, which is cool. Okay, so I guess first question is tell us about Orcs Must Die. Not really a question, but
Orcs Must Die. Orcs Must Die is
oh,
we
Unchained.
started as this. We started as a studio about 5 years ago. We did our first work on Age of Empires Online for Microsoft, and then about a year-ish, a little over a year-ish into that, into the studio, we started sort of toying around with ideas for what our first original game was going to be, and Orcs
Mhm.
Must Die is what came out of that. The first game was sort of it started as a blend of various prototypes of, hey, let's try this, let's do that. And we had this really cool thing where we started flipping enemies around, and it was like, okay, this is a lot of fun. Let's do a lot more of that. So we did Orcs Must Die 1, and that was hugely successful. And
Oh, it was, yeah. I've played Orcs Must Die 1 to death.
so have I. And everybody was kind of clamoring for co-op while we were making that. Like every show we would go to, people were like, this is amazing. When do we get co-op? So after the first game went well, we got the DLC out. We started digging our heels into working on a co-op version of the game,
Hmm.
which ultimately became Orcs Must Die 2.
Which was
And
fantastic.
and again, while we were developing that, everybody was like, "Oh my God, I want PvP!" And so we moved along. We made Orcs Must Die 2. We made Hero Academy. We made Echo Prime. And when it came time to look at what we could possibly do with another Orcs Must Die game, PvP came back into the conversation, and we dove into it to see what could be fun, and essentially put two games of OMD head to head, and
Hmm.
that has become Orcs Must Die Unchained, and it has had a lot of iterations since then, and a lot of growth since the early days a couple of years ago of starting on it. But it's now in closed beta, and we're feverishly working to add features and content and all that stuff all the time.
Yeah, no, well, it's looking really good so far. As I said, I played both the first and the second one a lot. The second one was the 2v2 aspect, because when I played the first one, I remember just playing it. I was playing it alongside friends, but they were obviously playing the single player, so it was like
Yeah.
we couldn't really get to it. So when you brought out Orcs Must Die 2 with co-op, it was just like, oh, thank God, yes. It was so good. It was so good. So yeah, where did you kind of like start with obviously bringing? Obviously, you wanted to kind of bring in this new type of Orcs Must Die. So when was the kind of stage, and how did you start it from going from a normal Orcs Must Die to a multiplayer?
Um, Literally, we built a quick map, and it's like I said, we put two games of OMD
Hmm.
head to head. We moved over to a new engine now. We're in Unreal now, so we kind of had to rebuild a lot of
Ah,
stuff.
okay.
But we quickly built a head-to-head version. The original version of the game, in our early prototypes, actually didn't have the separate lanes. We had it sort of, you send your minions, they send their minions, and it was segregated by teams as well, Unchained
Hmm.
and the Orcs. So, you had your types of minions, they had their types, and everything met in the middle, and it was a huge clash. And unfortunately, it wasn't fun. It wasn't
Yeah.
very fun because it was just pure chaos in the middle. So we started iterating on that idea more and more, and decided to split the lanes, and then for the sake of fun decided to allow anyone to take any minions and heroes they wanted, and it's sort of evolved into what it is today. We've always sort
Okay.
of
Yeah.
just erred on the side of fun. Like, it's not, if this is a thing that's not fun, let's not do that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm
So
completely agree. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. So where like that, just honestly, all in one lane sounds amazing though. It sounds like
it
such
it
a
was interesting. I mean, it's an
yeah.
idea that's still written down in notepads here and
Hmm.
there, so it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, that may find a way to come back someday in the future in some kind of game mode or something. But the versions we had running, it definitely would have needed a lot of love to make it a fun, interesting experience.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Would you consider like maybe putting that in like another separate mode, like a kind of like a
Potentially.
joust style mode or something like that in the future?
I think it's certainly a possibility. I mean, we
Yeah.
don't have any current plans for that,
Hmm.
but I think stuff like that is a possibility. We never let ideas go, Like
Yeah,
when we
of
have an
course. Yeah.
idea, we keep it around, and even if we don't get to use it, we'll bring it back eventually in the
Hmm.
future, and revisit those ideas and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, because obviously being a multiplayer game like this, you could just keep adding to it and
Yeah,
adding
hopefully.
champions, adding traps, adding everything, because obviously in this game the traps wise compared to the other two is obviously there's a lot less, just because obviously you've got you've actually kind of made it less, but then you've made it more because you've got the different types of traps. So you've obviously got the arcane, the frost ones, variations of each version. So there is actually a lot in the game traps wise at the moment. I know you've just had another 40 cards as well, which is awesome.
I mean, there is a lot more, and there's a lot more different combinations of things with regard to elemental stuff. We've got the arcane in there now, and so there's a lot of different combos depending on what different people bring in their deck and things like that. It's much more opportunity than we have had in the past games. And that said, it is something we're very conscious of, is making sure that traps remain a core part of the game, because that is OMD, right? Like if you go in this game onto the defensive lanes instead of going offense, and you play defensive with the traps and whatnot, you basically are playing OMD 1 and 2.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
If you never left that defensive lane, it would be like playing a match of OMD 1 and 2, the biggest difference being that the minion waves would have heroes escorting them that you'd have to deal with. So so we're very conscious of making sure that element of the game stays relevant and stays a part of it, because that's core OMD, right? Like that's the original experience.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, it definitely still has that feel of still being Orcs Must Die, even though it's not in this way. It still has that Orcs Must Die feel, because I remember playing it, I'm like, when I first looked at it, and I was like, ooh, I'm really excited about this, but little apprehensive, as you could probably, a lot of people are, because you're going from a single co-op game to a multiplayer game. It's a big difference.
I think when you make any kind of big shift like this, you're going to get the skeptics, and we even saw those skeptics when it came to shifting to co-op. But we work very hard to earn people's trust by making good games. So ultimately, at the end of the day, what we've seen is that the people who are skeptical, once they get their hands on it, they generally feel less skeptical. We saw at PAX, a lot of people were like, I don't know, and then they would play, and then they'd come back 4 and 5 times through the weekend to play again. So it's a big thing. If you are skeptical, give it a shot. It's a free-to-play game, so it costs you literally nothing but the time to check it out, to experience it, and if you give it a few rounds and get used to the pace and the flow of it, it's actually a very, very exciting game. It's still very much in line with the original OMD games. It's got added elements. It's still got all the humor of the original games, but in huge amounts now, because we've got all these different heroes and whatnot. So it feels, the more you play it, the more it does feel like a pretty natural evolution of the Orcs Must Die formula into multiplayer.
I do agree with that, because when I first picked it up and played it, it did feel like Orcs Must Die. It was different, but then again, after like 1-2 games, I was like, wow, this is really, really fun. Like that's the one thing I will say. Maybe if it goes competitive, I'll ask you about that in a minute. But like, just playing it is just straight up fun. It is just really fun. Despite if you're losing, winning, you just being able to pick which minions go in the lane and everything like that, all that kind of combination. And I come from kind of card games and stuff, online TCGs and things. So the card aspect, which is like separate, I'll ask you about that in a minute. Like, how you came up with the card thing, because the thing is, I love everybody. I'm sure everyone in the chat can say this as well, that they love opening packs. Opening packs is like the greatest feeling ever. And I think that's probably what you've tried to do and succeeded with.
Yeah, I mean, the cards have been there since OMD 1. If you look back at the original game, when you open your spell book, all of the traps, they have cards. I mean, they were presented as cards with stats and everything on them. And same with OMD 2. We expanded that idea for OMD 2 with the spell book into not just traps, but all the trinkets and all the gear and all that extra stuff. It was all put on cards. And so by the time we got to this, that analogy just felt like it made the most sense and gave us, I mean, it was very natural, right? And so we kicked around a lot of ideas. Well, here's how you get these things, and here's how you get this. And then the card thing got put on the table, and everyone was just kind of like, oh, this is perfect. Because it does fit, right? Like, you're collecting cards just like you would in a TCG, but ultimately at the end of the day, you take all of that stuff into a 3D environment where you're battling, and it's an action game. So it's a fun combination and extension of again, it's taking some of those core ideas from the previous games and just blowing them up.
Yeah, I agree, and I think it works really well, because as I said before, everyone just loves opening packs. It's so
Yeah,
good.
and that stuff like we're going to be doing a lot of work there too to make that experience really feel satisfying. I mean,
Oh
right now
yeah.
you open the packs and you get your cards and that's cool and it is fun, but we're definitely going to be doing a lot more work there to sort of underline that and
Oh
make it
yeah.
feel really neat.
Yeah, exactly. No, I look forward to that. But I do love the fact that you kind of your build is the deck builder, and
Yeah.
it's really interesting, and it's not really been done before. I don't think, out on the top of my head, like
I,
combining the kind of two things really.
I don't think it's been done explicitly the way we're doing it. We've seen
Hmm.
lots of versions of this, but yeah, I
Oh yeah,
mean,
yeah.
you know,
Obviously
you've
deck
always
building, but you know what I mean, like deck building within a MOBA, and it's like it's kind of
exactly.
taken the League of Legends build screen and kind of put it into a deck instead,
Yeah,
and I like
exactly.
that fact. It's really
And
really
it's
interesting.
you've always before been able to build your trap loadout, and we just sort of again took that idea to the next
Hmm.
logical step, and you build decks of cards that you get to take with you that have all your gear and your weavers and everything in it. So you can pull different deck each time you go in based on how many you've been able to set up, and it fits. It just makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, because when you're looking at it, the complexity of it, like kind of later on, if you're working with a full five with a team,
Hmm.
you could tailor everything to everyone, and it could work incredibly well. Some of the builds you could come up with could be absolutely amazing, and I
That's the
really
stuff.
it like on the basis, it's really simple. It
Yep.
is really simple, but then you actually have a hell of a lot of depth to it, and more than I think most people realize.
Yeah, that's the part that is surprising when people really dig into it is that when you start looking at the way that heroes interact with different minions and different types of traps and elements, you can start building those combinations where if you have a team you play with a lot and one guy always plays, he mains Bloodspike or something, then you want to make sure that all your level 3 and 4 cards, if possible, have ogres on them because he's got that ogre bond.
Yeah,
And if all
exactly.
5 people are putting ogres in and Bloodspike goes rolling in with 10 ogres on a push, he's going to do some real damage.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
you start to play your heroes off one another like
Hmm.
that, and you get to some really really interesting combinations and places. And people start talking about where you put your card when you go to the war camp is the order in which they come out. So when a wave comes out, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the order of the cards. And so
Oh, I
we've
didn't
got a
actually
lot.
know that. Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
so we've got a lot of teams that get down to the level of like determining, okay, this person has to put their card in first because when we get to level 3, we want them to have this in front of the wave.
Oh wow,
Um,
well that's cool.
so if you really get into it, you can plan out a very intricate minion wave strategy.
Ah, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I didn't actually know that because that means like if you take the dwarf guys that shield people, for example,
Uh-huh.
you obviously want to put them at the front because you want them to buff everybody because they're quite slow walking. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's cool. Okay, I didn't actually know that. That's really interesting.
Yep.
Because I just threw them in and I thought it just did it in a random order. All right, cool. I'll see
Yep.
even more depth. God.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, like, kind of, how is obviously it's still very early on in the development stage
Yep.
for you guys. How is the kind of meta and the kind of potential top teams? Because I know you've done a couple of like maybe potential little money competitions. I've seen you've done some kind of spotlights and matches
Yep.
and things like that.
Yep.
Where are you? How's it looking in regards to the kind of the meta and what teams are doing
I mean,
as well?
we're pleased with what we're seeing. We haven't explicitly dug into like really refine and polish that stuff yet.
Hmm.
But like I said, we've got some teams that have pulled together and they spend a lot of time practicing together and they spend a lot of time working certain deck combinations and heroes together. And so that's the organic level of that stuff right now is very, very pleasing and satisfying to see. So it's something we'll be digging into in detail much more further along. We're trying to get all the gameplay stuff in place first, and then we
Yeah.
kind of push it all around. But right now, we're very happy with what's coming out of it in terms of depth and looking at that broader picture outside of just the action. And we think there's plenty there to really occupy, healthy teams and occupy people that do want to get into that at a much deeper level than simply fire gun.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. Yeah.
so, I mean, we think it's there, like I said, naturally. Now it's just a matter of getting everything in and then starting to push those pieces around to make sure that we're leveraging it the best way we can.
Yeah, of course, because it's always like the developers can plan for so much if they want to shape a certain meta, but it's always going to be the case where a team comes in and breaks the game, finds this OP combo that the
Yep.
developers didn't even think of, and it's
Yep.
that's the beauty. I love the
And-
beauty of kind of evolving stuff like that.
And we've had that happen, where teams get in and they start playing certain strategies and testing different things out. And we realize that, there's stuff that either we didn't think of or we did think of it, but we didn't really quite comprehend how powerful it would be in the right hands, kind of a thing. So
Yeah.
like the Ogre Bond was, it was a early on, it was a very powerful strategy, and for a couple of weeks it was sort of like, if you play Bloodspike and Ogre cards, you're going to win the game. Like,
Yeah.
it was a given. So we've had to balance stuff like that out, and we there's a push and pull with all that kind of stuff, and that's the good thing about having the closed beta, is we've got some really good players in there that are very dedicated, and we get that kind of information and data out of them.
Yeah, so what are you guys planning for kind of esports and competitions wise? Are you planning that kind of stuff for the future?
We're penciling it in. I mean, obviously the potential's there. We haven't explicitly developed things and features around that yet, but we know it's there. It's obvious that the potential's there. Yeah. Again, it's kind of like everything else you mentioned earlier. We are very early on, so it's kind of like everything else in terms of, let's get the core stuff in, and we, as we're doing stuff, we're like, oh, this would be great if we could support this, and then it goes on the list,
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So we've got a lot of ideas about how we could potentially support that kind of stuff. It's just a matter of getting there on the long list.
Yeah, indeed, yeah. So you were obviously thinking about stuff like spectator mode and things like this.
Yeah. In fact, cool. I'm looking at 12 emails here in my email inbox that are all about spectator mode.
Oh,
so
nice.
just discussing it, sort of wish lists and things like that. So those things are certainly on our radar.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. So in regards to like stuff that's coming soon within the beta, what kind of stuff are you planning? Because I know I think isn't the NA side of it being slightly further ahead than the EU? So I've kind of caught up now. I think
it's the NA during Alpha was quite a bit ahead, and then the EU has caught up quite a bit since we've gone into closed beta, and it's still very close. Most of it is on par right now. I think the Jib store in EU is Jib store might be up now.
Yeah, it was a little gone up to like yesterday, I think.
Yeah, it was a little bit behind us, but I don't even think it was a week behind us, so it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And then we've got a patch going out today, adding some stuff, some AFK dealing stuff, and some balance changes and stuff like that.
AFK dealing stuff needs to happen, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and we know that. It's one of those. It's the list, right?
Yeah, of course.
We're a very small studio, and I don't think a lot of people realize that. There's 55 of us here, and that includes everybody. That's like even the office managers and the marketing people, and so we're a small studio, and we're hustling through everything we can, but we're looking at doing more to help sort of even things out with people that do go AFK, and making sure that they get dealt with appropriately, with people that disconnect or quit. We are doing more balance changes, always balance changes, and then we've got some fun stuff coming up in the next, what's today, probably about 2 to 3 weeks. We've got some very cool stuff coming. About 3 weeks. We've got some very cool stuff getting added to the game.
Any spoilers you can give us?
I can't, unfortunately.
No, don't worry.
I can't.
Oh, it's worth an ask. It's worth an ask.
No, absolutely. Always ask. It's a little too soon, but we've got some more stuff coming to the game. It's going to be fun. So.
Yeah, have you got any kind of new characters on the horizon that you're planning to put in?
Oh, tons. We have a wall here where we have concept art up of all the heroes we want to do, and then underneath each hero is like all the vanity skins we want to do for them. Oh, wow. So and then we just mark, this one's done, this one's being worked on, and literally it's a full wall we've got. So the plan is to always be adding heroes to the game,
of course.
In ways that hopefully are compelling and make good gameplay additions, not simply here's a different character that looks cool.
Of course, yeah.
So we're constantly plugging away on those.
Yeah. So how many kind of heroes are you planning to average out on, kind of when you decide to release it, and also when you decide aiming for release, or around at least? Right
now we've got the open beta scheduled for Q4 of this year. We haven't narrowed it down to a specific time period. It's going to be the end of this year is what we're looking at. And then in terms of pace of releasing things, we're still figuring that out. A lot of that is what closed beta is for us. Is we've been releasing them relatively often. Every few weeks or so we add a couple heroes. And so we're testing out that pace. Can we keep that pace? Is that a pace that works for players in terms of, are they getting oversaturated, or is it right about the time they want new heroes, that kind of stuff. So if you're in the closed beta and you're watching those updates, right now that's about the pace we're looking at, but it could change to more frequent or less frequent depending on a lot of feedback places.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, one thing, obviously you've just done this new patch and everything, so if you want to mention maybe the 2 new heroes that you just brought in.
Yeah, we did. It was last Tuesday we put out a new
Yeah.
patch. Well, not this last one, the one before. And we added two new heroes. We added Sir Winston, who's a melee hero. He's a dark paladin. He
OP.
used to be. He is. Yes, he is. We're working on that.
Yeah.
Um, he was a beast when he first went in. And then the other one was the Kobold King, who you were just playing there a minute ago.
Oh, I love the
Uh,
Cobalt King. Yeah.
who's our kobold guy, and again with the interactions with the hero with the minions, he's a very cool one because buff he can buff kobolds, which are historically the most annoying characters in the game because they're so fast they just run past all your traps.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
I remember raging so hard at them in the first
oh
two
yeah,
games. Oh my
oh
god.
yeah,
Yes.
and now they have a leader who can help them do it even better. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh, I know.
Uh,
They do so much damage when you buff them. They do so much. I love the Cobalt King. He's probably
Yeah.
my new favorite character, to be honest. I love him. I want to make at least play with a couple of people and all have Cobalts in the first couple of waves because you could just do so much
exactly.
damage in the first couple of waves with the
Exactly.
Cobalts.
If you can, whoa, if you if you can do a good push and open up that Kobold King and a bunch of kobolds, then man, I mean, you can get so many units into the rift so quickly.
Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah. It's really crazy. I know, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Playing more with those. So what other features are you adding, kind of like party queuing wise? Obviously, you've got ranked that you're going to be adding in. How is your MMR system going to be working?
Um, it's in there now, actually. It's
Okay.
just very rudimentary.
Okay.
It's one of those things we've got it propped up, but don't look at it because it might fall over.
Mhm.
It's we're working that out. We've actually been doing a lot of theory on that end to figure out the best ways to handle that, especially as we're sort of in our early stages of population to make sure that we can get people into matches and try to make them as fair as possible. But yeah, we're looking at adding ranked game stuff. I don't want to go too into that yet because the design is still coming together for all
Yeah,
that
that's
and
fair,
how that's
yeah.
going to work. But it's like anything else, right? Like if it's not in the game yet, it's probably coming. If you've thought of it, it's probably coming. And if you visit the forums too, we talk a lot, especially in the master founder dev forums, about stuff that's upcoming. Our designers get in there and say, hey, this is something we're working on. What do you think? But yeah, we're going to be adding more social features. We're going to be adding Twitch integration. We're going to be adding, like I said, we're looking at all the stuff, the potential additions for esports to support that. We're looking at, I mean, ranked play obviously, and there's a tab for it already. We're looking at other interesting game modes that could come on later.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's just a huge laundry list of things, and then obviously the matchmaking system is something that we're sort of constantly adding little bits and pieces to make it more refined and better each time. The big issue now is just that it's relatively low pop compared to
Oh, of course, yeah. But you always
So-
you just have to kind of plan for the future. Yeah, I know what you
Exactly,
mean.
yeah.
You can't obviously have you have full teams versus pubs. Obviously, that's going to happen at this stage. Just
Well,
because of
and
the
it's
population.
happening, yeah.
Otherwise, no one would find any. If you queue as a 5, you'd never find a game.
And we see that happen a couple nights where you go in and everybody's on teams of 5 looking for matches, but they're not quite hitting right. So that was one of the things we're very concerned about. One of the things we are watching to see, like, okay, when's an appropriate time to roll this or that feature out in a way that's not going to be detrimental to the existing community, but will help us build towards what we need it to be.
Yeah. So what other modes are you considering? I know you kind of mentioned it, if you're allowed to say. I know we spoke earlier a bit about the kind of ARAM style, but what other kinds of modes are you thinking about?
I mean, right now it's our entire focus is purely on what's in the
Oh,
menu
of course,
already,
yeah,
the ranked and unranked, the custom and the ranked, and we've got the co-op in there, which needs a lot of work, but it's in there. We've had requests and we've had discussions about all kinds of other stuff, like, is there a way to make endless work with this? Is there a way to make
Oh god.
is there a way to somehow turn this content into single player content in any way that's fulfilling? So we're looking at that stuff, but nothing's set in stone yet. Right now, the only things that are for sure happening are what's already on the menu.
Yeah, of course. Because I think I joined in as you shifted to this new map, but you had another map before, which was 6 lanes. Am I correct?
Yeah, 3 lane.
Yeah, 3 lane.
In each direction. But yeah, so total of 6. But yeah, that's our 3 lane map. That's Highlands. We ran it for one night during the alpha, just for some early testing, and then we ran it for the first week of closed beta to get some more testing on it. It's getting a lot of art and design love right now, so we switched back to this map that you're playing on now, which actually the community voted on. The name for that is Cliffside Clash. I can never remember if it's Cliffside Clash or Cliffside Chaos. Because both were on the voting list. But so yeah, this 2 lane one is sort of our primary. It'll be the one where we encourage people to start playing on, because you can kind of grasp the concepts easily. And then we've got the 3 lane map Highlands, which people have seen, and it will be coming back. People will get to play on Highlands again soon. And then we're playing around with some more map ideas right now, and we don't know what our final number is going to be when we finally ship, but we are playing around with map ideas beyond those 2 already. So.
All right, awesome. Yeah. So what other kind of maps are you thinking about?
Well, a big part of it is we can't push the number of lanes too far, because then it just gets completely unmanageable, right? Like if you go beyond 3 to 4 and you've got a team of 5 people, then you can't effectively push or defend in that kind of a situation.
Yeah, exactly.
So a lot of it right now is exploring different interesting ways to structure like a 3 lane or a 2 lane map, and how can we make the same number of things work in a way that is laid out differently enough to change how you play it, to change the gameplay, to change the choices you make, like running back to a war camp versus just pushing ahead, So we're exploring a lot of that kind of stuff right now, different architecture, if you will.
Okay, yeah. Because how does the actual other map work? Is the 2 lanes open at the start, or is it just one?
It's one on the
Highland map. And you just obviously you can. So obviously those games more than most probably go even later game than the 2.
They can. I mean, it depends on who's playing. We're aiming to get all of the matches down to about 15 to 20 minutes apiece.
Yeah.
We want them to be fairly quick, but yeah, the 3 lane one gets really interesting, because then it's in 2 lane you both start. In Cliffside you both start with the same lane open, and if another one's going to open, exactly what it is, so it's easy to kind of prep for. But on the Highlands map, you don't know what's going to happen. They could open the left or the right, and then you have to dynamically and quickly change your plans. So
so you get to choose which lane you open at the start.
Well, no, the start one on Highlands is always the middle lane.
Yeah.
And then wherever you put your resources is going to open up either the left or the right. So
that's cool. Yeah, that could definitely
you just go drop your coin in, or if your team is good, you can open both at the same time and really scare the opponents. But obviously each lane that's open forces the other team to scatter their defenses and spread them thinner, and you get more and more of an advantage if you push it. So there's a lot of really interesting strategic decisions that have to happen on Highland.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking forward to that. Like I do at some point want to get a full 5 and just go on stream and just see how different it actually is compared to just pubbing it. Because I think it's a lot different.
Hey, Chris, do we have a plan for when Highland is going to be back in for playing right now? Or are we still working on it? Okay, yeah, we're still working on it. We don't have a set date for bringing that back in yet. But
okay.
I just figured since he was sitting here, I would ask him.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So I asked, one thing I want to ask about is kind of the lore and the whole story behind the whole thing. Because obviously, obviously the story in the first 2 is fairly fun, and these orcs going into rifts. So, why is this clash happening? I think would be a question.
The fiction and the gameplay are slightly different in that in the game we let you take any hero and any minions, but in the fiction side of it, there is a split between the Order and the Unchained. Essentially, and again, the first 2 games we used to always say that they had just enough story.
Yeah,
we didn't get
too much. Yeah,
it wasn't Lord of the Rings, but
of course,
we gave just enough story to kind of give everything reason and whatnot. And so, the idea here is that it's several years after the end of Orcs Must Die 2. The rifts have been opened back up. The War Mage and Sorceress have been rebuilding the Order, but what essentially happened is that multiple rifts were discovered that went to not just the light and the dark worlds. So they've discovered that there are a whole bunch of rifts, and they lead to all kinds of different places. And so as this power has been discovered, heroes have sort of cropped up on both sides of the conflict, and everyone's now fighting for control of all the rifts. So whereas before it was a relatively small conflict, it has gotten much larger, much broader, and there's a lot more at stake. And so you're getting all these other characters, all these other heroes coming from different places. That we didn't frankly know about before, and so so it's still fighting over the rifts. There is some lore about why there are like two fortresses next to each other with rifts in them. There's an actual reason for that stuff in the fiction, but we're going to be releasing a lot of that stuff sort of as we go through closed beta and release here.
All right, cool. That sounds awesome.
So I mean, it's not very necessary for the gameplay, but we have it there. It exists.
Yeah, because if you built the whole game around the lore, it would just kind of fall apart and just. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I suppose you could do it with like, you only have Unchained on one side and you pick your side kind of thing.
Yeah, but, like I said, we had that originally.
You want to leave it more open. It's more.
Well, it was kind of crappy if you go into a game and it's like, okay, well, you have to be Unchained. It's like, well, I only have one Unchained hero and I have 4 Order heroes, and I'd rather use that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And to be barred from using half your content at any given point wasn't.
Oh yeah,
it was a bummer, right? Like you go, and like I said, we always err on the side of fun, and you go in there and you go, oh, this isn't fun to have to not choose my heroes. So we just said, screw it, open it up.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. So I think someone in the chat earlier asked about kind of rotations of heroes. Are you going to be doing that? And obviously you're going to have kind of like cheaper rotations for some characters every other week, kind of things like that, as you grind your skulls and gibs up.
Heroes rotate. We have guest heroes that rotate every week. Right now it's just one. We may be doing 2 or 3 a week, depending once we get things rolling. But right now, every Friday we swap out a new guest hero, so it's a hero that you can try for free if you don't own them. And then we've got in the Jib store, there's always going to be a hero in there. So if you don't have the gold or the skulls to buy a hero, you can potentially grind up a bunch of your extra cards and get a hero that way through the Jib store. So there are rotations of alternate ways to try and get heroes.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Yeah. No. That's good, I think.
And obviously, like anything, like the rest of the game, that's all going to expand. Right now, the guest hero is 1 a week. Once we've got several more heroes and more population, that could easily turn into 2 a week or 3 a week, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So you rotate 2 that are already available out, and then you put 2 in.
Precisely.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Well, I think that's slightly better than having just a set like 5 that changes every week. As opposed to like League or whatever, because it gives you more chance to try these heroes, and it still gives you variation of what you can pick, but it still doesn't upset the kind of balance that's going on with free-to-play players.
Yeah, I mean, we want it. The 5 characters, the 5 core ones are free to everybody, so you've always got those to play with, and then we just give everybody a chance to, because it's one of those things, right? You want to try before you buy. So if you're not sure on a hero, you can wait until they show up, and they will show up eventually as a guest hero slot, and you can wait and try them out for a week. And if you like what you like, or if you like what you see, then you go either purchase them in the hero store or try to get them out of the Jib store or out of card packs.
Yeah, exactly. Royal Fino just asked, on the pay-to-win question, the developers are focusing on making sure once you've leveled up and collected enough cards, you're capable of winning just as much as anyone else, regardless if they paid money for stuff or not. That sounds about right. I think he's actually addressing someone else in the chat, but yeah.
That's Royal's one of our longtime players now.
Ah, okay, I see. That's
cool.
Royal. Awesome. One question I was going to ask, which is obviously a little bit off topic, but in regards to the map, when I first looked at the map, it's very confusing at first.
The mini-map, yeah.
Yeah, the mini-map is a bit confusing at first, and it's not obvious where everything's going.
Highlands is even worse.
I can imagine.
When you first go into Highlands, you're like, what?
But you also show all the heroes all the time from both sides on the mini-map.
Yes.
Are you going to be changing that? Because that just seems a little...
Currently, no. That is by design right now, for a handful of reasons that I honestly wish I could remember off the top of my head, but we do have reasons behind it. I wish I had Ian here, our design director, but there is some design reasoning behind why that is the way it is. And in its own ways, it's fun. We chose not to do any kind of fog of war type stuff on this. Yeah. The third-person perspective, first of all, doesn't lend itself well to that. But then it's also fun when you get characters like Midnight, the stealth characters, who you'll see their dot running towards you, and then it just disappears.
And then you're like, oh god.
Yes, and you kind of panic and start running away because you know you're about to get assassinated. So that aspect of it is actually kind of fun.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it is still fair because both sides get to see where you are.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's not...
Everyone can see everyone. So,
and especially if you talk about Highlands being 3 lanes, that's going to be very You're not. It's going to be very hard to keep up where everyone actually is on the
Yes.
map.
Yep.
If there's like essentially 6 lanes,
Well, and
it's going to be very difficult to keep track of everybody.
things change so fast in this game, and the control and the momentum can change so quickly that if you were having to communicate locations of everyone purely by chat or something like that, you would kind of be hosed.
Yeah, you'd just be doing that instead of actually playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely understand with that. But yeah, so I think we had a couple of questions from the chat earlier.
Sure.
When does Humans Must Die come out?
This is kind of Humans Must Die.
Yeah,
We got the
exactly.
humans in there now. Got the soldiers, the Order minions.
Oh yeah, I know.
So,
One thing I wanted to ask about the units that you actually play, like how many unit cards are actually in the game currently?
oof.
If you know that.
I don't know off the top of my head. Hey, Chris, how many minion cards are in the set right now? Minion cards, yeah. Yeah, it's in that range, right? Like, it's in the 60 or 70 range. Yeah.
Oh wow.
It's in the 60 or 70 range for minion cards, and of the initial set, which is 140 cards.
Okay, that's great.
So
Wow, that's a lot. I didn't realize it was that much. Obviously, you got multiples split between the 4 tiers.
sure, yeah, that's not. That's also not. Obviously, it's not 60 to 70 unique minions. It's because all the cards are combinations of minions.
Oh
so,
yeah, that's what I mean.
yeah.
So, which are in your opinion, are kind of your favorite minions or favorite combination of minions?
The bears. I love the bears. The bears are amazing.
Everyone loves the bears.
Everyone loves the bears. Yeah. I play the bears anytime I can. They're fantastic.
I also want to say props to the animator who animated the bears. Their walk is badass.
Yes.
But no, it's fantastic. I love the bears, especially the armored one.
Yes, the bears are they're fun, and when you roll into someone's fortress with a bunch of bears behind you, they just kind of soil themselves because it's going to be a big fight.
Yeah, exactly. So where do the ideas for the bears come from? Because they don't kind of fit with anything really. It's just like, let's just put some bears in armor and throw them in the wave kind of.
We have been giving one of our designers, Joe, a hard time. He's a big dude, and we've been giving him a hard time for years about just being a bear of a human being. And we've always tried to get him to put on a bear costume when we go to PAX and stuff, because we're like, dude, we need a promotional bear. Put the suit on. And we're always like, how much? What's it going to cost? And so we've kind of always just had jokes about bears in conversation around here. And when it came time to do minions, they were like, well, yeah, of course we're doing bears.
Mm-hmm. Nice. And who's the the massive guys with the mustaches? Who are they based off? Come on,
they're just they're just giants. They're the Order version of the trolls.
I was hoping you said it was look like someone in the office or something.
Yeah,
great, that'd be perfect.
Actually, do we have any? But no, there's not really anybody that looks like that.
Are you gonna have any kind of stuff like that? Potentially, like.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. There's a lot of. There's already references and stuff we're doing to things in the community and jokes that are internal here, and so that stuff will find its way into the game.
Oh, that's awesome.
We've already got. There was one player who just kept telling us over and over that Hogarth needed a golden axe, and so we've worked one up. I don't know when it's going to be coming out and get added, but there is a gold axe skin.
Nice.
And his player name was the Unknown, so we ended up calling it the Axe of the Unknown.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So it's all stuff like that.
Oh yeah, I love stuff like that. I love it when the community gets more involved and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, Winston, the new character, was actually born completely of a community inside joke. Like,
oh wow.
There was a streamer who was streaming OMD 1 and 2, and the first time he ran into a paladin, he named him Winston, and then from there on out he named all the other ones the Sons of Winston, and so that's actually Winston's backstory. Like, if you look at his backstory of his character, he was an Order paladin who all of his sons died in the First Rift War, and he blames the Order for it. So he turned on them and found some dark magic and an arcane sword to use to exact his revenge against the Order. So we love doing stuff like that. Like, we literally have a list of things that are like inside jokes and stuff from that community that we can use to incorporate into the game as actual pieces of canon or equipment or whatever. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool. I love kind of stuff like that. I will say that your guys' interaction with the community is really, really good.
Thank you.
A lot of companies nowadays don't talk enough to their community, and they don't take. They say, "Oh yeah, we're reading the forums, we're listening to you," but they don't really. They read it and then they think they're out and they carry on. So I'm glad to see that companies are actually doing this now. So props to you guys for that.
Thank you. We try. I mean, it's a big part. We recognize that, especially with a game like this, like it lives and dies on the community, right?
Oh,
so,
of course, yeah, it does. Of course, yeah.
In fact, we're about to start on the master dev forums on both the EU side and the North American side. I'm going to hopefully get the thread up today, but we're going to start a little program on both the master forums for designing a character, designing a hero. Each side's going to get to design a hero. The whole shtick, though, is that it's not going to be everyone throwing your ideas and we'll pick. We want people to work together, become a little design team, and we want them to come to us at the end with here's the hero we want to pitch to you for the game, and we'll see what that looks like, and hopefully incorporate those into our long queue of heroes that'll be coming.
Yeah, no, that's really that's awesome. See, I love that, and obviously you've got your community live stream as well, which has been really good so far. I've watched a couple of them and watched a few back episodes of. So yeah, it's really good. I like the fact that more companies need to do that. I think Twitch is a very underused thing in some cases.
Well, and this week we just cranked up our Twitch schedule. Like we were doing two streams a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and now this week we've actually cranked that up to we're doing about 12 or 14 a week now. So
oh wow, that's a lot.
it's basically 2 a day, Monday through Saturday. So
wow.
With lots of different topics and stuff. So
yeah. So what actually happens? What kind of streams are you doing?
So a bunch of them are just matchmaking gameplay, like we were doing before. Several of them are that. Tuesday afternoons we've got Insider Access, which is going to be doing like dev interviews, studio tours, looks at some of the early prototypes of the game, how we develop heroes.
Okay.
How I'm hoping to do a piece on how we develop the music, all kinds of things like that. And then we've got our Tuesday nights. My time, late night for you.
Yeah.
We do our community nights, which Nananea hosts, and she's going to have different guests on from the Twitch community, teaching them how to play, that kind of stuff, and just kind of talking about the games. Thursdays, she's got Throwback Thursdays in the afternoon, which is today, in fact, in about 10 minutes, I think it starts.
All
She's
right.
got her Throwback Thursday streams, which she goes back and plays some of the original OMD 1 and 2 games.
Oh wow. Nice.
And Fridays we're starting up. This Friday, in fact, it starts. We're starting the Orcs Must Die Developer League, which we took one of the things we do for playtest is we've split a lot of our developers in-house here into teams, and they've gathered, collected in teams, and we say this team versus this team this week, and so we've actually turned that into a thing that we're going to be broadcasting. So every Friday we'll be doing a Developer League fight where it'll be one of our internal teams fighting another team. We've got a whole bracket built out for a season, if you will, of that.
Oh, that's cool.
And then from time to time, we'll also be playing against teams from the community for little exhibition matches. So lots of stuff like that. Lots of fun little stuff, and we're going to hopefully keep adding to that as we go.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah. I can't. Yeah, as I said, like community interaction like that. There's not many companies that do that. So yeah, again, props to you guys for that. Someone in chat just asked, "Is there going to be a bear hero?"
I just answered him. I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, that just has to happen. I'm sorry.
We will get on that.
Yeah, bear hero.
Yeah, no, everybody agrees that absolutely has to happen. Of course it does. Come on.
Well, come on. You just need to take the minion, like any minion in the game that hasn't already got like an alternative hero.
Yes,
you've obviously got the null. You've got the null heroes.
Yep.
You've got the cobalt. You've got the cobalt hero. You've got like the satyrs, which you haven't got a hero for really.
Not yet.
There's like all these little dwarf gnome guys. I'd love to see some kind of dwarf, by the way. Like,
we agree.
I have a giant beard, so yeah.
So,
model it after me, of course.
Prospector is a dwarf. He's out there. I will say there are more coming.
Good. Yeah, because there's obviously like a bomber dwarf hero from the originals would be so good. The original defender. What were they called in the second one? Oh my god.
Which?
In the second the dwarf defenders, the ones with the bombs and the hammers.
Oh, the grenadiers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely needs to be a hero like that. Definitely.
Yeah, we don't actually have a grenadier. Would be an interesting ranged hero.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Definitely. See.
Like I said, we've literally got a huge wall of ideas, and this is what we do. We go into the forums, we go into everywhere, and we collect. Hang on, there's 100 people talking around me. What's going on? Oh, sorry, they're trying to decide the server push for the patch that we're about to do. So,
Oh, okay. I see.
anyway, yeah, like everyone was around me talking all of a sudden. Anyway, so yeah, we've got a lot of really fun ideas. Some do harken back to previous OMD games, like Stink Eye, obviously the Cyclops Mage.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we've got a bunch of new ideas, like we've already seen with people like Midnight and Temper.
Yeah, yeah, those are really cool, definitely. I think someone just mentioned it in chat just then. Like, is there anything going to happen with the flying minions? Because obviously they were a massive part in the first two games.
Everyone
and they were an
asks us
absolute
that.
pain in the ass.
They were. And we get asked that question constantly. Right now, the flying minions are a big like to have for us, but we just are. It's a whole other issue we have to resolve, right? Like in the old games, they had their own lane basically.
Yeah.
But if you look at the maps that we play on right now, there are places to put traps up high, and that's not accidental. So we've got that in mind, that flyers are a part of the game, and we would like to see them find their way in eventually at some point. But there are technical issues we have to resolve there. There are big design issues we have to resolve.
Yeah, of course.
Like a melee hero can do nothing against a flyer, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot of hurdles to suddenly add a very different type like that. But it is something that comes up a lot in conversation, something we're very keenly aware of that the community wants. So it may not necessarily be in the first release version, but I could see that sort of thing getting added in like in a further season or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even just adding in the alternative versions of the flying minions, but just kind of just have them slightly hovering over the ground kind of thing. Even just something, yeah.
Hopefully we can do more fun than that.
Oh yeah, of course, of course. But no, yeah, I know what you mean. It's pretty cool.
One of those things, like, it's a game changer, right? If you can introduce flying minions in an interesting way, it'll change the dynamic of the whole battlefield, really. And
definitely.
So you have to put a lot of thought into that. And if you do it right, it could be a really great addition to existing maps, even.
Yeah, a lot of people will lose to the flying minions.
Oh yeah.
The amount of times I've just like, right, yeah, I've cleared the wave, I'm all good, and then just hear that my rift just dying because the flying minions that I've just completely ignored and forgot about I've got through. And I think we've all come across that from the first two games. Bormy asked earlier on just like an explanation of your basic kind of business model as regards to what you're going to be charging players and kind of the general aspect of that.
Yeah, we're still kind of figuring out all the final prices on everything, and they're different, or they're obviously converted. They're in euros and EU, but the base, getting outside of specific prices, the base model is that essentially you can buy gold, which you can spend on anything in the store. Or if you go through and play the game, you can earn skulls, which is a currency, again, that we've had since the beginning of the games. You can earn skulls, and the skulls can be spent on anything, I believe, except for vanity right now. So you won't be able to buy skins with the skulls, but you can buy anything else. You can buy packs of cards, you can buy heroes. And then once you get the packs of cards, you open those up, and it's just like a random card distribution. You were showing it earlier on your stream.
Yeah.
And you're going to get 5 cards, and whatever's in there's in there. That can be traps, it can be heroes, it can be minion cards, it can be gear, it can be weavers, and then all of that goes into your collection. And you build your decks out of the cards that you have in your collection. You see already the traps that you've brought with you, they have little X2 and X4 down there at the bottom. That's how many of that card you have. So if you slot, for example, an arrow wall into your deck, and you have 4 of that card, you'll be able to place 4 arrow walls when you go into the mission. So it all works that way. And then we have the Jib Grinder, which is any duplicate cards that you have, you can grind up for Jibs, which is that third currency. And then there's a specific store for the Jibs where you can grind up all your extras and go use those to buy, a piece of gear that's in there this week, or a hero that's in there this week that you really want. The first week we had the teleportation ring in there, and everyone and their mother bought that because it's a great piece of gear.
Oh, yes,
and everyone wanted it. So it's the kind of thing where we give you that opportunity to get rid of some duplicates that you maybe don't want, and to maybe get your hands on something that's highly coveted that you just haven't found in a pack yet.
Oh yeah, it's really good, especially when you don't have kind of a trading system in the game.
Exactly.
Like having a recycle system.
That was the point, right?
Yeah,
we
were like, have one or the other.
Exactly.
Yeah, completely. So we've got a few more questions in chat here. Do you see yourself becoming a top tier MOBA, or are you happy with an indie following? I think you kind of answered that earlier on.
I mean, yeah, like we're just trying to make a fun game is ultimately what it comes down to. If there's a huge audience around it, we will do everything we can to support that. We would love that, you know. We've had a very passionate and decent sized indie community since the first Orcs Must Die, and if that keeps pushing forward, we'll push forward to support that. But yeah, I mean, sure we'd love to be enormously successful.
Oh, definitely.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, I think off the back of Orcs Must Die 1 and 2, you're gonna have like a very big following, to be honest, because Orcs Must Die 2 was incredibly popular.
Yeah, the first two games did very well, and we've seen a lot of people come over for that. And like again, we are sensitive to the fact that it's changing the game style a lot. So we're trying to bring back a lot of what those people loved. We're doing work on combos for these trap kill boxes because that was a huge part of the OMD2 community was combos. So we're trying to bring those back and make sure that that stuff still has relevance and still has some meaning, so that if that's what you prefer, if that's how you like to play, you can still get that experience here or some version of it here.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so will there be ways to modify your heroes with different armor colors and such from Scava?
Skins essentially.
Yeah, it's just skins, but obviously,
yeah.
I think he's talking about obviously just changing the base color of it.
Yeah, there's no like explicit character modification, character customization, but you can get skins for the characters that'll change. Yeah. They change their look actually pretty dramatically for most of them. So
yeah. One thing I was going to ask off that, obviously, like Dota 2, they've got the Steam Workshop or anything like that. Is there any plans for something like that in the future with regards to skins and looks of characters?
Right now, no. Steam is one of those things that's in the distance for us right now. We're launching this complete. I mean, it's off Steam right now.
Yeah, I understand it's off Steam. Yeah, but obviously your first two games were predominantly on Steam.
Yeah, so I mean, the potential is there for the future, but we're trying to build this right now. And Ian was talking about this yesterday a little bit in a Q&A we were doing. Ian's our design director. He was, you know, when you get on Steam, like it's a fire hose. You're on or you're off. And when you go on, everyone on Steam comes into your game and floods it, and that can be good and bad. If something falls over, you're kind of hosed. No pun intended. So we're growing the game as much as we can here. We think that we can do a lot more here. Not a lot more, but we can build what we need at the pace we need here, and then we will look at that kind of stuff in the future.
Yeah, of course.
But the core game is going to launch off Steam.
Yeah. I was going to ask something about your servers as well. Is it peer-to-peer, or have you got dedicated servers?
Dedicated.
Oh, awesome. That's good. A lot of kind of free-to-play games are usually peer-to-peer because obviously it's cheaper.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you've got dedicated servers because that just makes everything so much more stable.
Yeah. That's the hope anyway.
Yeah. Espresso asked, has been asked, will there be an Orcs Must Die for single players? I think you kind of mentioned that earlier about you wanting to do potentially some kind of single player thing.
It's a thought that's on our mind, right? Like this is not OMD 3. This is OMD Unchained. The option for a 3 is out there somewhere. I can tell you we're not working on that right now. It's a question that has come up from a lot of our core community. They want that single player experience again. And I wouldn't say it's off the table. It's not something, like I said, we're working on right now, but it's potentially out there in the future. So we'll see. We're not opposed to it necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. I think just slightly earlier you mentioned the music, because I love the music in Orcs Must Die. I think it's fantastic. So can I just ask who did it, or kind of what was the inspiration behind the music for Orcs Must Die?
It's all we've got a sound company that works for us here in Texas, and they do all of our sound effects, and then they do the music too. We started in OMD1 with like, okay, what kind of music do you think sounds good here? And everybody kind of threw in their 2 cents and some examples, and he came up with this fun kind of fantasy rock original sound that everybody fell in love with immediately. So it's carried through both of the games. And originally when we had OMDU out there, it didn't have any music in it, and a lot of fans, including myself, were like, that's not acceptable. So we've got 3 songs put together now that are in the beta as we speak, and we're probably going to be building more for that out. So
awesome. Yeah, because
it's such an iconic part of the series, the music.
It is. Yeah, it really is. Like whenever you think of Orcs Must Die, I always think of the music just rolling around in my head. So yeah, definitely, it's really, really good. One thing I was going to ask about the Are you from the original Orcs Must Die team? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So how did the style of the game come about? Because I know obviously because you like
accidentally
for doing like kind of because it does have, even though it's like cartoony, it is very unique compared to other types of games like that, and it's like how it's very interesting, and I just wondered how you kind of came up with it.
It was purely by accident. The original concept art for the game, and I'll have to show some of this stuff on the Insider Access show next
awesome.
one of these weeks. But the original concept art for Orcs Must Die literally was like Lord of the Rings looking. Like it was all very serious fantasy.
Okay.
And the fortresses were very serious castles with very serious bricks and very dark lighting, and everything was this very serious fantasy game where you were fighting off these invading waves of creatures. And then we put the flip trap in. And as I kid you not, as soon as you fling an orc through the air and he's like flying off a bridge, you can't not laugh at it.
Yeah.
And then we were putting in the push traps, and we were putting in the swinging mace. And as soon as you start pushing and shoving and gibletizing all these enemies in a really over the top manner, it becomes hilarious. And so we're sitting in there in playtest with these very serious castles and characters, laughing a lot, and we realized, okay, this is not going to cut it. Like this game is funny, the gameplay is funny, so everything else needs to support that. So we went through, we wrote a story that was funny, we wrote dialogue that had way more humor to it. We leaned into a lot of the things that we found humorous, things like Evil Dead and stuff like that. I mean, the main characters very clearly got some Ash inspirations in him, so we leaned into that kind of stuff. We made it as funny as we could, and then the art style went with it. It morphed its way over into being something much more humorous and lighthearted and funny than we ever initially intended.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. That's fun. I'd love to see some screenshots of the old dark and brooding Orcs Must Die.
That's a good idea. I'm gonna dig some of that out, and we'll do an Insider Access show all about the development of the game.
Oh, if you could send me those, and I'll share them on my stream as well, because I'd love to see those.
Yeah, I'll when I find some, I'll send them over.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah. One thing I always like to ask when I interview game devs is, not well personally as well, but what like I know a lot of when I've spoken to devs and stuff, when they're getting ideas or whatever, they sometimes have these weird ass rituals that they do, and they either talk about them or they just go, "I'm not saying what I do because it's too embarrassing." Do you have any, or do you know of anyone in the studio who has any kind of weird thing that they do when they're trying to get?
We don't have weird rituals. All of our rituals are very, very mundane stuff. We're all old dudes. Like, there's a lot of people who've been in this industry for 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
Our like idea generation stuff is literally standing around in hallways. Every day there's a handful of us that make a trip. There's a Starbucks across the street. We all walk over there for a coffee break in the afternoon, and that's generally where a ton of ideas get just BS'd out between everybody. We go to lunch together, and literally we just sit in cars on the way to and from lunch yelling about ideas like, no, it needs to be this. This doesn't work. This is dumb. Let's do this. And that's just kind of how things get hashed out. We're constantly talking in playtest. It's a very close studio. We're very open. Like the whole floor is open. There's no cubicles, and so there's just always opportunity to be talking to each other. And it just sort of. I wish I had a weirder story for you, like we hang upside down from the ceiling or something. But it's just a constant.
I've heard weirder. Trust me.
A constant stream of communication where we're just always talking about the game.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah. You gotta have that kind of. It's better to have, I guess, have that open environment so you can just shout across the room ideas and things. So yeah, that's cool.
And we do.
I think it's a good from Scava. Does everyone in the studio enjoy making it? It sounds like you enjoy it and everyone else enjoys it.
Oh, absolutely! It's a blast making this game.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah, because
it's so much fun.
Yeah, me personally, I've just graduated as a games design student. So
congratulations.
Thanks. I want to go into stuff like this, and I'm currently planning. Basically trying to start my own indie studio as well. So
great.
Talking to you kind of guys is such a privilege. So I appreciate you doing that as well.
Of course.
Red Fink's just got a quick question. Will there be flip and push traps later on? I think I read this somewhere on the forums that you want that in, but haven't quite worked out how to implement it in the new engine. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, the physics stuff in general is a lot of processing, right? The way we did it in OMD 1 was easy because it's a single player game. You don't have to worry about it. OMD 2, we didn't have to worry about a lot because it was co-op, not competitive. And so what would happen is everything was handled server side right up until the moment that the physics fired. So when it would hit an orc and he had to go into ragdoll or whatever, or had to fling through the air, that would get processed on the local client. So the server never had to process 20 orcs flying through the air and then getting set on fire and then pushed off a cliff. Now what that meant, unfortunately, was that if you and I were playing co-op, an orc might fling 10 feet farther or whatever, or slide a little farther on yours than he would on mine. And again, it wasn't as big a deal because it was co-op. So if an orc got in accidentally and got points in the rift, we both win, so yeah, it's a win. But in a competitive environment, suddenly everything has to be the same for everyone, right? So that you're not cheating anybody out of points or fights or anything like that, which means all that physics on all of these minions, everything would have to be pushed onto the server somewhere. So that's a lot of processing power to add. So it's one of those things that we would love to figure out a way to get that back in, but it is going to be a bigger, it's kind of like the Flyers, right? It's going to be a bigger challenge to face than what we have now. So it's just a matter of, it's not that we don't want to do it, it's just a matter of we need to figure out if it's technically feasible without destroying the gameplay.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's probably what you're adding for, obviously you've got a bunch of minion ideas, because a lot of these minions are fairly new to the game. But obviously the traps, you've still got this huge back catalogue of traps that you can go to and look at and then pull back in and then make multiple different versions of that trap, so you've got even more. So with those traps, like, which are the kind of the next ones you guys are thinking about putting in from the first two games?
Let me see if I have an email about let's see. Gosh, I don't know where. I have so many emails right now, it's bad. I know I was just looking at one this morning. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it.
Because there was obviously a lot of fun traps in...
Here we go. Let's see if I can talk about any of these.
Like barricades would be very interesting to put back in.
Barricade, well, that's another one of those ones that's a big processing hit, because what happens when you put a barricade in is that every single minion heading that direction has to recalculate where he's going to go or where he can go, which means you go from normal processing to suddenly 40 characters that are AI driven all having to go, wait, no, where do I go from here? And suddenly that's a huge burden to all of a sudden throw. So I'm trying to look at that list. These are all... There's one of the old magic weapons coming up. There's another one. We're bringing in some of the... What we did too is like the ring... The fire... What were they called? The amulet of fire, whatever. I forget the old names. Flame bracers. There it is. It had two abilities before. It had the fireball and then the wall of fire. We split that into two things now. So there's a piece of gear that does fireballs, and then there's a piece of gear that will let you put the wall of fire down. The wall of fire is one of the ones that's upcoming. So I'm trying to look at this list of what we got coming up, and another alternate on the brimstone.
Just from thinking about how much actual items were in the game. Like the stuff, like one of the items I used a lot was the alchemist throwing of the potion things.
Oh god, yeah, we haven't even touched that yet.
Yeah, like there's just so much stuff that you could add in either as a potential hero or as an item. Either way.
And then there's so many versions of things now, like you said. Like we've got the arcane version, the fire version, the ice version, the acid version, the whatever. And then like we've got the glory seeker version of things. Like we started with the glory seeker ballista, which it's a ballista that will only shoot at heroes. So you can imagine glory seeker versions of anything. A glory seeker floor spike that will only fire off if a hero steps on it.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it's just because adding that level of different kinds of traps on top of it is just, you've added even more depth to even the stuff you've already got like kind of backlogged that you could potentially use from Orcs Must Die 1 and 2. I think there's still quite a few not heroes, but minions, like the big stone guys. I'm assuming you're going to put those in at some point.
We have had some very fun conversations about potential for those.
Oh yes, I'd love a hero of him, because that would be just...
So would I.
Oh yes. because it just reminded me in the picture I've got on my stream at the moment.
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
My video's just finished, so like one of them would be amazing. A troll character as well would be a troll hero as well.
No, for sure.
Really cool. Because there's just so much possibilities.
Yeah,
you guys got a lot of work to do.
There's a very deep bench of things that we can get access to. And for heroes, like you said, for minions, for trap ideas, for trap alternates, for gear, for there's so many things. It's wonderful. Yeah. As little story as we put in, we actually have a very deep universe, you know.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It's just because of the first 2 games, you've barely scratched the surface of what you're going to be able to do in this. You've opened so many doors. Bommy asked if there's something you could change, something that didn't work out quite as you wanted, what would it be?
Ooh. I mean, we do that every week, right? Like every time we do a patch, we change something that didn't work out the way we wanted. Like we recently changed War Mage to lightning damage, and we changed Hogarth to frost. Because
I like that change, by the way.
We did everything, and then we didn't realize, like, oh, wait a minute, all the major free heroes that everyone has access to are physical damage, and it was just sort of it was kind of a samey thing that we never intended, we didn't think about, and so we decided to start changing those up. In terms of very big things, I don't know, we're real good about putting what we want in there, and we've, on OMD 2, we had a lot of conversations about could we add a third co-op character like as DLC, and some of the ideas we discussed for what that character could have been are now heroes in this game. So we very rarely skip over anything. If we like it, we put it in. We did have some discussions early on in this game about like how you have to go over bridges and stuff to get to the other side. We talked about things like environmental events that you could set off that would destroy a bridge or something like that. But again, that's like barricades. It's a huge overhead on the processing in terms of people having to change their path now. And
of course.
So the stuff that we have passed on has been passed on for very, very good reasons. But yeah, there's really not a lot of like big stuff that we wish we could change because we would just change.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, agreed. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, agreed.
We have that freedom.
Yeah. All right. I think this is the question that a lot of people were asking for, and I always ask people, "What's your favorite character?"
Stink Eye. For me, Stink Eye. Right now.
All right.
I love playing defense Stink Eye.
Yeah, he is pretty cool. He's very large though, so he's a big target to hit, especially for range characters.
Yeah, I mean, if you play,
I think he's the biggest character you've got actually. Like height-wise.
Yeah, he is right now. But if you're playing him well, you should hopefully be able to stay out of range characters. So.
Well, Red Phoenix, that's a cool idea. Will there be gate upgrades dealing X type damage back to attackers? That's a cool idea.
That's a really interesting idea. I'm writing that down.
Yeah, do it.
Great idea.
There you go, Red Phoenix. You heard it here first. No, that'd be interesting. That'd be really, really cool. Like
that's a fun idea. Or like more armored gates, or that'd be really interesting.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Electrified gates.
That'd be cool.
Oh, that's such a fun idea. I wonder what the implications are.
New slot in a deck.
This is most of our conversations. Like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then we have to go, wait a minute, what does that affect?
But no, that'd be really cool.
I would.
What was the idea behind the gates anyway? Because it's a very kind of interesting thing that hasn't. You've got the ways like. Because when did that start? Because it's really cool. It's really.
I'm trying to think of where it started. Initially, I mean, the gates have always been a part of it with the doors that have to get broken down, right? And so we had the doors there, and then I think it was just a crowd control issue. I think it's along the way we realized we need more crowd control. We need some dynamic crowd control, and just flat out stopping a thing like that was the easiest way to do it. And then as we've used them, there's been all these strategies around gates. You can lock heroes in that try to push on you, and then you just murder them. You can lock heroes out. That's always fun when they're running up to support minions, and you lock them out and you destroy their minions before they can get in. So it was just sort of an organic thing that was like, we need something here to be able to affect the pace of this, or to give you a second chance if your door does get broken down. And it started with the door being able to open and close independently, and then we realized, well, we could do this at multiple places on the path.
Yeah. Vadas, will Ivy get a nerf?
Probably at some point she'll get a little one, but because she's awesome right now.
It's really good at pushing waves with the healing. It's really, really powerful.
Indeed.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now.
All right.
So if you got any parting words for people playing Orcs Must Die or anything like that?
Get on the forums. If you're already playing, please get on the forums. I mean, we have this all set up so that we can get feedback from players about what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see, what's working, what's not, what's balanced, what's not. And so I can't stress enough, like, go talk to us on the forums, because we actually are in there talking and bouncing ideas off people, and we make changes every patch based on player feedback. So we actually do let the community affect this game. That's why we're doing the closed beta. And so get in there, chat about it. If you're not in, excuse me, sorry. If you're not in yet, go to orcsmustdie.com and sign up. We send out waves all the time of invites. So
yeah, awesome. All right, well, thank you very much for the interview, man. I really, really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I hope to maybe talk to you again sometime. And please send me those pictures.
Yeah, I'll see what I can
Orcs
dig
Must
up.
Die, because I want to see those. I really want to see those.
Yeah, I'll dig
the
up
Lord
what
of the
I can.
Rings style Orcs Must Die. That sounds like what? Just like I want to see that.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, man, and I will talk to you again, hopefully.
All right. Have a good evening.
All right, cheers.